Very good morning and welcome to Breakfast News, day's first comprehensive roundup of important national and international news and also the updates. We have different segments also, the national, international, business and sports too, various other sections. We'll touch upon the web review also. It's a power-packed 1 hour. First up, the headlines. Maharashtra announces stricter restriction measures to break the coronavirus chain from today. Allows only 15% workforce in government offices, 25 people limit for weddings, restricts inter-district and inter-city public transport. Jharkhand government imposes a week-long lockdown to check the spread of coronavirus in the state. The state government has announced Health Safety Week beginning April 22nd, night curfew imposed in Bengaluru till May 4th. Efforts being made to ramp up availability of beds and medical oxygen across India. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal thanks the centre for increasing Delhi's oxygen quota. Union Health Ministry and eminent doctors call for judicious use of antiviral drug remdesivir and medical oxygen. ICMR study concludes that Covaxin neutralizes against multiple variants of SARS-CoV-2 and effectively neutralizes the double mutant strain as well. Government says India may get fourth COVID-19 vaccine made by Biological E with support from the government by August. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to participate in Leader Summit on Climate being held virtually today and tomorrow. PM to make his remarks on our collective spirit to 2030 in Leaders Session 1 later today. Summit being held on the initiative of US President Joe Biden. Voting for 43 seats in the 6th phase of West Bengal underway. Results for the 8th phase elections will be declared on May 2nd. And the 5th batch of Rafale fighter aircraft arrive in India. The warbird flew an 8,000-kilometer long direct ferry from Mérignac Air Base in France with air-to-air refueling support. Well, let's start with national news. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will participate in the Leader Summit on Climate at the invitation of the US President Joe Biden being held virtually today and tomorrow. Prime Minister Modi will make his remarks in the Leaders Session 1 today on our collective sprint to 2030. Nearly 40 other world leaders are participating in the summit. The leaders will exchange views on climate change, enhancing climate actions, mobilizing finance towards climate mitigation and adaptation, nature-based solutions, climate security, as well as technological innovations for clean energy. The leaders will also deliberate on how the world can align climate action with inclusive and resilient economic development while respecting national circumstances and sustainable development priorities. The summit is a part of a series of global meetings focusing on climate issues being held in the run-up to COP26 in November 2021. Right, to talk more on this, our correspondent Abhishek Jha is joining us live. Good morning, Abhishek. Virtual event will be held today and tomorrow, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be part of the virtual event on climate change. So 40 world leaders will be part of the event and they'll give their views on climate change?
Of course, Abhishek, and all these 40 leaders are mostly from the countries where the climate change or the impact of the adversing climate will be mostly felt, like the countries from Europe, countries from European Union, Asian countries. Of course, USA is already there. USA is actually trying to mobilize and lobby around with various countries in order to have a better climatic agreement that was promised in 2015 in Paris to be implemented on ground also. We know that this whole COP21 agreement or the Paris Climate Agreement has got new lease of life ever since the Biden administration has come into office, because the last president, Donald Trump, has withdrawn from the agreement, citing that will impact US own industrial and economic structure, and he has withdrawn from that agreement. But now when Biden has rejoined the agreement, it feels that certain world countries, certain world leaders, especially countries like USA and other European Union countries, Asian countries, in fact India was already part of it, and commitments were being met all through this time. They will actually push that agreement that was in order to have almost 2 degrees of CO2 reduced to the pre-industrial level working. So this whole working mechanism needs a regular consultation. And recently, U.S. President's envoy on climate change, John Kerry, was in India. He also met the Prime Minister, our Environment Minister, and Renewable Energy Minister also. And he discussed ways to how India is trying to fulfill its commitment promised in COP21. And he said that India is very well on the path of achieving all its targets in a very scheduled manner. And Abhishek, just to tell you the fact that by the agreement, India had promised that 40% of its all energy consumption will be based out of renewable energy sources by 2030. But the point is, India has already achieved it so ahead of its targeted time, and almost 38.5% of our energy basket is comprised of renewable energy. So India is very much trying to achieve what the target was set earlier, and all the sectors, all the departments, various ministries are coordinating on that to fulfill that commitment.
Right, Abhishek, like you mentioned, virtual event will reflect the concerns of US President Joe Biden regarding the climate change. But again, Biden, you think, is likely to announce a net zero carbon emissions target for the US at the summit?
Of course, because since he's tried to initiate this whole meeting of world leaders, so we can expect that the USA would also come forward with such a big announcement on its own industrial policy or its own carbon emission policy. If the target will be maybe reset, and we can very well have this announcement of USA going ahead with net zero emission commitment.
Right, Abhishek. President Biden had called for the summit in March, saying that the event will reflect the urgency to stop the climate change. Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you for giving us your vital inputs. Right, now news on COVID front now. The total vaccinations across the country have crossed more than 13.22 crore mark, with more than 21.21 lakh vaccine doses administered on Wednesday. The cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country stands at 13 crore 22 lakh 40,352. Total 21 lakh 21,042 vaccine doses were given on Wednesday itself, the 96th day of nationwide COVID-19 vaccination drive. In view of sudden spike in the demand for oxygen in some states due to an exponential rise in the number of COVID patients admitted in the hospital, the union government has increased the quota of oxygen in Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Haryana, UP, Punjab, Andhra Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Delhi. And the efforts are being made to ramp up availability of beds and medical oxygen across India. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has thanked the centre for increasing Delhi's oxygen quota, and Union Health Ministry and eminent doctors have called for judicious use of antiviral drug remdesivir and medical oxygen. The Union Health Ministry has said that presently there are 146 districts in the country where the COVID-19 positivity rate is more than 15%, which is a major cause of concern. It said the government is focusing in these districts to control the situation, and there are 5 states where the active cases are more than 1 lakh. The states are Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka, Chhattisgarh and Kerala. And another vaccine, Biological Ease indigenous COVID-19 vaccine, which has completed its phase 1 and phase 2 trials, looks set to join India's vaccination drive by August, we are saying. And the company has a capacity to produce 7 crore doses per month.
free. According to the Union Health Ministry, there are 21,57,000 active cases now, more than the maximum number in the last wave of the pandemic. The recovery rate is 85%, while the fatality rate is 1.16%. 146 districts have positivity rate of more than 15%.
देश में 740 से अधिक जिलों में कुल 146 जिले ऐसे हैं जहां पॉजिटिविटी 15% से अधिक है। राज्य सरकारों के लिए भी और भारत सरकार के लिए भी ये 146 जिले हैं जो चिंता का विषय हैं। हमने राज्य सरकारों से बहुत व्यापक विचार विमर्श किया है कि इन 146 जिलों में किस प्रकार के प्रयास किए जाने चाहिए जिससे कि इन्फेक्शन का ट्रांसमिशन रोका जा सके।
Maharashtra, Kerala, UP, Chhattisgarh and Karnataka have more than 1 lakh active cases as of now.
महाराष्ट्र में 6,85,000, उत्तर प्रदेश में 2,23,000, कर्नाटक में 1,59,000, छत्तीसगढ़ में 1,25,000 और केरला में 1,18,000 केसेस हैं। तो ये राज्य ऐसे हैं जिनके साथ भारत सरकार और राज्य सरकारें मिलकर इन राज्यों में अस्पतालों की बेड और अस्पतालों में ऑक्सीजन और दवाइयों की उपलब्धता, साथ ही साथ अस्पतालों में अन्य आधारभूत संरचनाओं को कैसे स्ट्रेंथन किया जाए, इस पर मिलकर प्रयास हो रहा है।
The effort is on to increase the supply of oxygen to many states. Delhi is trying to increase the number of beds also. Many beds have been added in recent days and many more will be added in days to come.
वर्तमान में हमने आदेश निकाले हैं जिसमें कि ये कहा है कि कुछ विशेष उद्योगों को छोड़कर अन्य उद्योगों के लिए अब ऑक्सीजन की सप्लाई रिस्ट्रिक्ट की जाएगी ताकि अधिक से अधिक ऑक्सीजन उपलब्ध हो सके मेडिकल उपयोग के लिए। आज जब हम आपसे बात कर रहे हैं, हम देश में सभी राज्यों को 6,600 मेट्रिक टन 7,500 में से एलोकेट कर रहे हैं। 30 अप्रैल तक के लिए हमने राज्यों का डिफरेंट ऑक्सीजन प्लांट्स के साथ मैपिंग भी किया है। ये एक डायनामिक एक्सरसाइज है।
The vaccination process is also maintaining its momentum in the nation. Centre had announced the decision to expand the ambit of vaccinations few days back. It allowed vaccination to everyone above the age of 18 from 1st of May. Apart from it, it was also decided that vaccine manufacturers would supply 50% of their monthly doses to Government of India. The vaccine manufacturers were free to supply remaining 50% doses to the state governments. Manufacturers were required to make an advance declaration of the price for 50% supply. Private hospitals would have to procure their supplies of COVID-19 vaccine exclusively from the 50% supply earmarked for other than the Government of India channel. The Serum Institute of India has announced the pricing for Covishield vaccine for the open market. The state governments will be supplied the vaccine at Rs 400 per dose, while the private hospitals will be supplied the vaccine at Rs 600 per dose. Meanwhile, according to a study by ICMR, Bharat Biotech's Covaxine is effective against mutant strains of the virus. It is also effective against double mutants. Bharat Biotech and ICMR also released results of phase 3 trials of Covaxine. The results are encouraging and Covaxine is 78% effective overall clinically.
बायोलॉजिकल का फेज 1 फेज 2 ट्रायल लगभग खत्म हो गया है। वो डेटा अपना सबमिट कर रहे हैं बहुत जल्दी, कुछ ही दिनों में, और उसके बाद वो फेज 3 में जाएंगे। बहुत सिग्निफिकेंट डेवलपमेंट है बिकॉज ये मैन्युफैक्चरर बहुत पुराने हमारे मैन्युफैक्चरर रहे हैं चाइल्डहुड वैक्सीन के, एंड दे हैव अ वेरी मेजर कैपेसिटी, समथिंग लाइक 7 करोड़ डोजेस पर मंथ की कैपेसिटी वो कोविड वैक्सीन के तरफ वो ईयर मार्क करेंगे। वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट डेवलपमेंट, और हमें उम्मीद है कि ये अगस्त से वैक्सीन जो है उपलब्ध होगा, ऐसा वो उन्होंने कम्युनिकेट किया है।
The centre has said that overuse and excessive use of antiviral drug remdesivir is not advisable and it should be used judiciously. On the issue of oxygen availability in hospitals, centre has advised the use as per requirements. Centre is confident of winning the war against the COVID pandemic.
यूनियन गवर्नमेंट, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट, पीपल ऑफ इंडिया, हम सब मिलके साहस से, धैर्य से, अनुशासन से इस वेव को भी जीतेंगे और ये मिलके करके दिखाएंगे। और इसमें हमें जुड़ना है, तंत्र को जुड़ना है, हम सबको जुड़ना है और इसको करके दिखाना है। इसको फेस करेंगे। ये वेव्स बाकी जगह भी आई, यहाँ आई है, इसका भी मुकाबला करेंगे और सारे टूल्स हमारे पास हैं, सब जुड़ के इस काम को आगे बढ़ाएंगे।
Meanwhile, the Department of Revenue has waived custom duties on remdesivir and its active pharmaceutical ingredients. This step will further augment domestic availability of the injection. Government has also approved setting up of PSA plants in 162 government hospitals to increase the availability of oxygen. Bureau Report, DD India.
Right, to talk more on this, my colleague Tapas Bhattacharya is joining me live. Good morning, Tapas. First of all, we want to know about the current situation in Delhi, primarily about the oxygen availability and also the beds availability in the state, because Delhi CM Arvind Kejriwal said yesterday that the quota of the oxygen has been increased by the centre.
Yes, absolutely. Let me just first give you the Delhi health bulletin that came late yesterday night, and according to that, more than 24,638, that is the new cases, the new positive cases that has emerged yesterday. The only blip yesterday's health bulletin was the number of tests conducted. That was nearly 17,768. They were earlier doing 19,000 to 1 lakh tests. Yesterday, the test was only just about over 78,000. And even in that also, the positivity rate, if you count with the number of new cases, the positivity rate is almost over 31%. And that is quite a worrisome factor. The fatalities in the national capital has touched 240 in the last 24 hours. And that is another major issue that has been, people are talking about the 31 positivity rate. What it implies is that every third person who's getting tested in the national capital is currently a positive case. So that is a worrisome factor in the national capital. Now, talking about the beds, there's definitely a massive shortage in the beds. In fact, the portal that the Delhi government provides regarding the number and availability of beds has seen especially the ICU beds is absolutely negligible, absolutely nil. And even yesterday there were only 20 beds available. Even in the morning there was very few beds available for especially for people who require oxygen. So that is a major case of concern. In fact, the center has chipped in. In fact, they have decided to increase the beds by 4 times. In fact, on 1st of March 2020, there were 510 beds that were available from the central hospital central quota, and they have now increased it to 2,105 beds. And out of that, 1,875 beds are coming with the oxygen cylinders, oxygen beds, and 230 are ICU beds. So that is a major thing that the center has come in, and almost 48 beds are there at the Sufficient Hospital. 240 beds are there in the Lady Harding Hospital, and the DRDO facility at the Tolokwan, the national capital, has already seen 250 beds, and almost another 250 beds with ICU facility will be made available in a couple of days' time. So, in that sense, the central government is helping the state to come to terms with the massive crunch when it comes to availability of beds in the national capital. Now, talking about the oxygen situation in the national capital, the center yesterday said that they have not just for the national capital but also for the whole country. They have increased the supply of oxygen. In fact, the quota that this country is producing is almost 7,500 of oxygen, and out of that 6,600 metric ton of oxygen has been provided to the states. And almost, if you take a close look at Delhi, Delhi used to get 378 metric ton of oxygen, and now, as per center yesterday, they will be getting 480 metric ton of oxygen in the national capital. That's a steep hike from of oxygen level in the national capital, and the Delhi Chief Minister also thanked the state center because of that. But still, the crisis is persisting, and many hospitals have called up SOS to the government to ramp up the supply as they are running short, and that is a major cause of concern especially for COVID patients who require, many of the patients who required oxygen as a prerequisite, because this particular virus impacts the lungs in a matter of, and as a matter of concern, and that is where the oxygen cylinder or the supply of oxygen becomes even more important. Abhishek.
Right. Before we wind up, Tapas, just wanted to know about the remdesivir supply. Also, major shortage in remdesivir too.
Yes, there was a major shortage of remdesivir as well as of Tamiflu or other very important drugs in the fight against coronavirus. And the problem is that most people are doing panic buying in the national capital, and that is where they are getting they are unable to find it on shelf of the most of the chemist people. In fact, we did a reality check yesterday in many of the chemist shops in the national capital. Most of the people, most of the shops are saying that they are running out of key ingredients, key what you call medicines in a matter of minutes, because people are trying to do panic buying, and that is where the major problem lies. The hospitals, the doctors have made it very clear that remdesivir along with other drugs should be taken only when the situation or the doctor prescribes it. Otherwise, we should not take it. So that is one thing that we would like to appeal to the public also. Abhishek.
Right, hoarding, like Tapas said, is a major cause of concern, and Delhi reported over 20,000 cases yesterday, a little less than the previous days, like Tapas mentioned, but it is because of the less samples that were taken. Yes, thank you, Tapas. Thank you for giving us those vital inputs. And talking about COVID restrictions now, with the rising number of cases, most states have decided to tighten restrictions amid rising COVID cases. Jharkhand has also imposed lockdown from 6 a.m. this morning till 6 a.m. on 29th April. The lockdown week starting April 22nd has been marked as Health Safety Week, where all shops, barring essential ones, will remain shut. A few central state sectors and private offices remain open. However, industries, construction, agricultural and mining activities will continue in the state. And announcing the lockdown, CM Soren said it was required to break the chain of the virus, which is seeing a surge in the state. In Puducherry, full lockdown has been imposed from Friday till 29th April morning. Efforts are on in the nation to ensure availability of essential medical equipments, drugs and oxygen on one side, while restrictions imposed in various parts are an effort to break the chain of transmission. In Assam, the state government has ordered for closure of malls and weekly markets by 6 p.m. and a cap of 20 persons have been put for funerals. The curbs shall remain in place till 30th April. And Assam government also announced free vaccination for those in 18 to 45 age group starting 1st May, when the next phase of COVID-19 vaccination drive is set to roll out across the country. And following the surge in cases, Karnataka has also imposed a night curfew from 9 p.m. on Wednesday and will be enforced till 4th May. During the night curfew in Karnataka, cinema halls, gyms, theatres, bars, pubs and assembly halls will remain closed. Apart from this, weekend curfew will be imposed from 9 p.m. on Friday till 6 a.m. on Monday. A night curfew has been imposed in Bengaluru till 4th May. And talking about the Maharashtra situation now, the Maharashtra government on Wednesday night announced stringent restriction in the state due to a huge surge in the cases of the COVID-19. The state government has also issued standing operating procedures for the curbs. The restrictions will come into effect from 8 p.m. on Thursday, that is today, and will be in place till 7 a.m. on May 1st. The state government's SOPs say that no travel will be allowed by public or private transport unless it is for essential services, medical reasons or vaccination. The number of guests at wedding have been capped at 25 and the function must not go on beyond 2 hours. The families found flouting the order will be fined Rs 50,000 and the misused location shall be closed till promulgation of COVID-19 as a disaster remains in force. The government and private offices have been asked to allow only 15% staff, and the SOPs also say that only those private offices which provide essential services or are in exempted categories can function. On Wednesday, Maharashtra recorded 568 deaths due to COVID-19, its highest ever since the beginning of the pandemic, and 67,468 fresh cases. This pushed the statewide tally to 40,27,827 and death toll to 61,911 according to the bulletin of Maharashtra government's health department. Right, so our correspondent Shishir Shalar is joining us to give us more information and the current situation in Maharashtra. Good morning, Shishir. First of all, Maharashtra has issued stricter curbs as the surge continues in Maharashtra. 25 in wedding, the wedding should not go beyond 2 hours. 15% office attendance, and people should only go if it is necessary. Over 67,000 cases were registered yesterday in Maharashtra itself, and over 500 deaths in a single day. Situation is not good?
Well, absolutely, Rahul. The situation is quite grim in Maharashtra, and that's the reason the number speaks for itself. 67,000 cases were found yesterday, and of course, the death toll that we've seen here is almost more than 500 cases. And that's the reason somewhere, people in Maharashtra, especially the ministers in Maharashtra, have already conveyed the message to the chief minister, stating that this situation needs to bring under control, and probably stricter restrictions, or probably the lockdown is the only option left with the state, and that's the reason state government have taken these steps here. Now, as far as these new restrictions are concerned, let me put some light on it. As you rightly said in the story, that interstate travel, though the government has not stopped the interstate travel completely, people, those who want to travel with a valid reason, are allowed to travel. But again, those, especially if you're traveling from private buses to any other city in the state or maybe another district, the private bus operator will have to ensure the COVID norms here. They'll have to stamp on your hand to stay at home for 14 days quarantine here. So another important aspect is that the offices now here. Now, looking at these numbers, even though the government have put restrictions in Maharashtra, in spite of that, you've seen that number has increasing. It's more than a week now that these restrictions under Break the Chain initiative have been imposed in Maharashtra. But still, there's no improvement in the numbers we have seen. And that's the reason state government yesterday came out with this new guidelines under which they wanted to curb the crowded places here. As far as the transportation, bus stands, railway offices, or even the offices are concerned, the government tried to reduce the numbers from these places. As a result, only 15% now attendance is allowed in central and state government offices. Earlier, the private offices have been told to start the work from home. Only people working on the essential services are exempted from this rule here. The same way we have seen in the transportation as well, as telling you that most of the people use the public transport to reach to the office again. That's another impact where we see that the coronavirus may spread from these public areas and the public transportation. Here also, government tried to put restrictions. Is that only people under essential services now can use the railway and the buses and the metro services. So far till now, all the people can use the services, but now from today onwards, especially after 8 p.m., the trains will be available only for the people working under essential services in Mumbai and rest of the Maharashtra. As far as the buses are concerned, the interstate, as I told you, that permission has been given by the state, but with certain restrictions also been imposed on that. Well, in spite of that, the people want to travel out of the state. The trains for the long routes, especially the mail and express, have been working as per the schedule. But again, they have to follow the SOP given by the railway ministry here. There has been reports probably after the lockdown. What about the people, especially the migrants, laborers who are staying in Maharashtra? So it seems quite clear that the state government has not touched on that part here. Those who want to travel or those who want to come into Maharashtra, they will have to follow the rules given by the state government. At the same time, those who want to travel out of Maharashtra, all the long journey trains, long route trains and express are working as per schedule. Whichever state they want to travel, they have to follow the SOP of that particular state as well. All these SOPs now will be, action from today's 8 p.m. here. Well, these restrictions are probably a state government is putting to reduce the number here, because day by day the numbers are increasing. We have seen here, because of the rising cases, there has been pressure on the infrastructure, especially the health infrastructure of the state. And by reducing this number, probably we may see that the numbers will get reduced slowly and steadily here. In spite of that, what we have seen in yesterday's numbers, especially the death toll, is quite alarming at this point in time. This is the first time that Maharashtra has seen more than 500 death cases. And that's the reason now the state government will have to take quite a strict approach, and probably that's what we can see from today itself.
Absolutely, Shishir. And the Maharashtra government is also reeling under the pressure of complete lockdown from state ministers in order to contain the virus. Thank you, Shishir. Thank you for giving us those information. Moving on, 3 eminent doctors have come forward to dispel myths and misconceptions about the COVID-19 pandemic and its treatment protocols. The doctors have taken the initiative to educate the people and encourage them to follow COVID-appropriate protocol. AIIMS Director Dr. Randeep Guleria, Chairman and Founder of Narayana Health, Dr. Devi Shetty, and Chairman of Medanta, Dr. Naresh Trehan, addressed issues related to COVID-19 in the country. And speaking in the virtual address, Chairman of Narayana Health, Dr. Devi Shetty, stressed on the need to be self-vigilant and recognize the early symptoms of COVID. He has advised people to go for RT-PCR test if they exhibit symptoms of an infection like body ache, cold, cough, indigestion, diarrhea or vomiting.
My message to all of you is, if you have any symptom like body ache, fever, cold, cough, anything, or indigestion, diarrhea, vomiting, whatever problem you have, I have one important message. Please get yourself tested for COVID. That is the most important thing you need to do.
And the issue of oxygen supply and its requirement by patients was prominently highlighted by the 3 eminent doctors. Dr. Trehan urged the people that if they don't need oxygen, then don't use it as a security blanket. He added that there is enough oxygen available and there will be no shortage whatsoever if it is used judicially and wastage is avoided.
In any country, any part of the world, there is X amount of oxygen available as a as production. Today, we have enough oxygen if we try to use it judiciously. We don't want to waste oxygen. So the protocols for oxygen use and the response to what level we want the oxygenation in a patient to be, and the fact that I would like to inform the public also that if you don't need it, don't use it just for a security blanket. If you are not using it and you are walking around or eating or something, switch off the oxygen. We are giving the same advisory to doctors and to hospitals also, that judicious use of oxygen most definitely should be done, and any patient who needs it should get it. So wastage will only lead to depriving some people of this oxygen, which you should be, as individuals, as citizens, have a collective responsibility that we do not want to get into that state where we feel responsible for being selfish in wasting something and depriving somebody else.
Right, and this aspect was also endorsed by Dr. Randeep Guleria, who discussed this issue at length and advised against any voluntary or indiscriminate use of antiviral drug remdesivir. He said that majority of people recover by taking paracetamol and staying hydrated, and only a small percentage of patients actually require remdesivir. Listen.
Like you treat a simple cold, you can get away with treating COVID in majority of people with just taking paracetamol, keeping yourself well hydrated. It's only a small percentage which will require drugs like remdesivir, and there is no data which suggests that remdesivir taken in mild disease will save lives or will have any benefit. The data for remdesivir does not show that it actually decreases mortality. It only has been shown to decrease hospital stay. And the large study done by WHO, the recovery trial, was a negative study. It did not show any role of remdesivir. Therefore, don't consider this to be a magic bullet. It is something that we need to keep in mind.
Right, very vital advice coming from the health experts now. And now moving our focus to West Bengal elections now. Voting underway for the 6th phase of assembly elections in West Bengal. Prime Minister Narendra Modi took to Twitter and said that the people of West Bengal are voting to elect a new assembly on the 6th phase. Today, Prime Minister has urged those whose seats are polling to exercise their franchise. 43 assembly seats spread over 4 districts goes to polls in this phase. 306 candidates are in the fray in the 6th phase. All India Trinamool Congress and Bharatiya Janata Party are contesting in all 43 assembly segments. BSP in 37, CPIM in 23 and Congress in 12 among others. 10,897 main polling booths and 3,583 auxiliary booths set up by Election Commission. COVID-19 related preventive measures are being ensured at the polling booths. Voting will take place till 6:30 p.m. today. Right, Anibrato, our correspondent, will give us more information on the 6th phase of West Bengal elections. Good morning, Anibrato. First of all, voting has started for the 6th phase. 306 candidates in fray, 43 assembly constituencies. People coming out to vote, and COVID protocols are being strictly followed.
Yeah, exactly. As you know, amidst the the shadow of the corona pandemic that has cast a gloom of uncertainty everywhere, while it is witnessing surge, and amidst this, the 6th phase polling in West Bengal is underway. We find a long queue here at this point. I want to show you at the backdrop and in front of me the long queue of the voters, and it is virtually snaking into the booth. The voters have taken all measures necessary because they are equally, conscious of this thing, the rise of the corona pandemic. All of them, we find that they're wearing masks. At the same time, what we see that the poll officials also who are there inside, they are also adhering the strict protocols that are the guidelines that have been given. As the voters are entering into the booth, primarily their temperature is being checked, and if it is not surpassing the normal temperature, only they are allowed to enter into the booth to cast their vote. And at the same time, they are also distributing the mask, hand gloves, and sanitizer, all these things. And the thing is that voters are indeed, here they feel enthusiastic in the true sense of word, because this is a festival of democracy, and they do not want to let loose this chance to select their candidate. West Bengal election primarily at this time stands as a historic juncture, whereas you find that the BJP emerged as a dominant force in Bengal politics, particularly after 2019. We find that the BJP is virtually at a sniffing distance of the Trinamool Congress. In North 24 Pargana alone, where the polling is underway of the 17 assembly constituencies, BJP had taken lead of almost 10 assembly constituencies out of the 17. Where the polling is underway today. What we find that this phase is witnessing, unprecedented presence of the Central Force Jawans. 1,078 company of the Central Force are deployed, and what we find that the quick response teams are moving hither and thither to keep and watch whether the polling is happening to take place in a very peaceful fashion. And even we find that inside of this polling station, we find that a large presence of the Central Force Jawans there. So it's certainly to give a confidence to the voters so that they do not face any problem while entering into the cast their vote inside the polling booth.
And also, Anibrato, before we wind it up, phase is very, very important for both TMC and BJP too, because BJP's vote share shot up from 10.74% in the last assembly elections to 40.85% in the 2019 Lok Sabha elections in these constituencies.
Yeah, exactly. As you saw, the Lok Sabha election made a diabolical change in the true sense of word. Because we find that the earlier BJP hardly any presence in the Bengal politics, and particularly where the election is underway today, BJP hardly any presence there in the last assembly election we find. But soon after this assembly election, when the Lok Sabha election had taken place in 2009, we find that the BJP had made a big sway, and their poll percent has largely been increased. Earlier, what was 17.8%, it has become more than 40%. Although Trinamool was holding lead with a 43% but the thing is that in the assembly constituencies where the poll is underway today, BJP has taken a lead over Trinamool Congress.
Yeah. Right, absolutely, Anibrato. And phase is very, very important, like I said earlier, for both TMC and BJP also. And this phase might also be the defining factor on May 2nd also. Thank you, Anibrato. Thank you for giving us those updates. Moving on now, the fifth batch of Rafale fighter jets arrived in India from a military air base in France on Wednesday. The fighter jets flew a distance of almost 8,000 kilometers non-stop with air-to-air refueling support by France and UAE's Air Force. The jets were flagged off by Chief of Air Staff Air Chief Marshal R.K.S. Bhattauria from Merignac Air Base amid his ongoing 5-day official visit to France. Indian Air Force has thanked both the air forces for their cooperation. Moving further, Prime Minister Modi has expressed grief on the demise of Padma Award scholar Maulana Wahiduddin Khan. Renowned Islamic scholar and Padma Vibhushan awardee Maulana Wahiduddin Khan passed away due to COVID-19 complications on Wednesday night. He tweeted, and I quote, this is what he tweeted: "Saddened by the passing away of Maulana Wahiduddin Khan, he will be remembered for his insightful knowledge on matters of theology and spirituality. He was also passionate about community service and social empowerment. Condolences to his family and countless well-wishers. RIP." Now let's move on to our next segment, which is Web News Review. Right, my colleague Abhishek Jha is again with us. Good morning again, Abhishek. What news have you chosen for Web Review segment?
Good morning once again, Abhishek. And the first news that I am bringing to you is from the Statesman, which has, again, this is something related with the COVID. The lockdown in Puducherry from April 23 to April 26 has been imposed, and this comes as the COVID cases are surging in this union territory. Next news is from Hindustan Times, where the US Senate has confirmed Vanita Gupta as Associate Attorney General in USA. She belongs to a family of Indian immigrants. Vice President Kamala Harris and she's a good was on good hand for the procedural board because the 50-50 Senate balance may not have gone in her favor, but then one Republican broke away from the faction and they supported, and that's how Vanita Gupta has now been elected as Assistant Attorney General in USA. The next news that I'm bringing to you is from the Indian Express that says Pfizer has decided that it will supply COVID-19 vaccine only through government channels. We know that recently government has opened all maximum licenses to various drug manufacturers from across the globe, and with the rising cases, we are hoping for the largest immunization drive across the country. And going by the report, the Pfizer will be selling its drugs only to government agencies, and then government may decide to sell it to private companies or to immunize the population on its own. The next news is from the Pioneer, where Rajasthan government has announced summer vacation for all schools from April 22nd to June 6th. This again comes as a surge in coronavirus cases in the state. The state government has announced that this whole cases, we have recently seen that the Jaipur has again, the capital city has again become one of the cases, a center of maximum cases in the state, and this decision are in the light of those surging cases across the state, where government has decided to shut all the schools for another 45 days for summer vacation. The next news is from the Times of India, which has said that, says that Britain's Heathrow Airport turns down airline requests for extra flights from India. We know that UK has decided to put India in the red list, where the flights from India are going to be limited or banned for sometimes because of the rising cases of COVID. So in that light, India wanted to have some more flights in between to the Heathrow Airport, where the permission has been denied by the Britain's Heathrow Airport. And this was all from today's news web reviews. Back to you, Abhishek.
Right, thank you so much, Abhishek. Thank you for web news review segment. Now let's move on to our next segment, where we bring you news from across the globe. First news in this segment: a car bomb blast ripped through a luxury hotel's parking area in the southwestern Pakistani city of Quetta, killing 4 people and wounding 11. The Taliban has claimed the bombing, according to a senior official in Pakistan. China's ambassador to Pakistan was staying at the hotel but was not there when the bomb exploded. The Chinese ambassador is safe. The Chinese embassy did not respond to a request for comment. And US embassy officials in Moscow met Russian officials to discuss Russia's response to the latest US sanctions. The US State Department said that the discussions will continue in coming days. Ned Price said that the US government has officially received the list of US diplomats being expelled in retaliation for recent US measures from Moscow. The tension comes as police in Russia rounded up more than 1,000 protesters who took part in rallies organized by allies of hunger, striking Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny over his failing health in jail. The United States warned Russia it will face consequences if he dies. Now let's take a look at coronavirus update worldwide. More than 14 crore 44 lakh people worldwide have so far tested positive for COVID-19, while over 12 crore 25 lakh people have recovered from the virus. The deadly virus has so far claimed lives of over 30 lakh 70,000 people from across the globe. The United States continues to be the worst affected country by the COVID-19 pandemic. So far, more than 3 crore 26 lakh people have tested positive for COVID, while over 5 lakh 83,000 people have died of the virus in the US. And with Denmark reporting less number of new COVID-19 cases, the country has started to reopen the economy weeks earlier than planned. Restaurants and cafes are now allowed to provide indoor service. Denmark has avoided a third wave of the COVID-19 epidemic after imposing wide lockdown measures in December, which slowed the pandemic considerably to between 500 to 700 daily infections from several thousands in December. Denmark now see gradual reopening of shopping malls, museums, libraries, indoor spots for people under 18. Football fans will also be able to return to stadiums in separate sections, each holding 500 spectators. All spectators must show corona passports and will be registered with a view to trace any new outbreaks of the virus. Now, every year, 22nd April is observed as Earth's Day to create awareness about pollution, highlight environmental issues, including loss of biodiversity, increasing pollution, and to celebrate the environment of the blue planet. Founded by Senator Gaylord Nelson, Earth Day was first observed in the year 1970, and this year marks the 51st anniversary of Earth Day. The theme of the day this year is Restore Our Earth. The theme focuses on natural processes and emerging green technologies that can restore the world's ecosystems. In this way, the theme rejects the notion that mitigation or adaptation are the only way to address the climate change. Right, now let's move on to our next segment, which is BizBuzz. The main equity benchmarks in the US rebounded Wednesday, halting 2 straight days of declines. Investors dipped their toes into a market that had lost its mojo on the back of fears of a resurgence of COVID in parts of the world. The Dow Jones Industrial Average finished up over 300 points to around 34,138. The S&P 500 index closed up 0.9%, while the Nasdaq Composite Index finished up 1.2%. The gains were even more pronounced for small capitalization stocks, which have been beaten up over the course of the past several sessions. Right, from business now to our next segment, which is Sports Track. Starting with football news, Manchester City returned to winning ways with a 2-1 victory over Aston Villa. Following a dramatic few days in football, City managed to give something back to the supporters. The owners heard with an excellent display at Villa Park. Things didn't start off too well, however, when John McGinn put Villa ahead after just 21 seconds following a John Stones mishap. But the Blues were unperturbed and came back into the match thanks to the sublime Phil Foden, with the youngsters tucking away the equalizer following a fantastic team move. A towering Rodri header put City ahead, but then disaster struck as Stones was sent off for a high and late challenge on Jacob Ramsey. FC Barcelona and Real Madrid are the only two clubs left still in the European Super League after the 10 other clubs have backpedaled from the idea. The 6 Premier League teams who were set to be founding members of the Super League, Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Tottenham Hotspur and Arsenal, all announced they would leave and were followed by exits from Atletico Madrid, Inter Milan and AC Milan too. Juventus have not officially left yet, but Chairman Andrea Agnelli has recognized the Super League will not work in its current format. Cricket now. In IPL matches, fast bowler Khalil Ahmed led an impressive bowling effort before Johnny Bairstow smashed an unbeaten 50 as Sunrisers Hyderabad snapped their 3-match losing streak with a convincing 9-wicket win over Punjab Kings. Asked to bowl first, Sunrisers Hyderabad's pace spin duo of Khalil and Abhishek Sharma did bulk of the damage to bundle out Punjab Kings for a below par 120 in 19.4 overs. Chasing the total, Sunrisers Hyderabad openers Johnny Bairstow, who made 63, and David Warner, who scored 37, pummeled Punjab into submission, adding 73 runs off 60 balls to set the foundation. Bairstow and Kane Williamson then knocked off the remaining runs as the SRH roamed home with 8 balls to spare. In another match, Faf du Plessis' magnificent 95 not out and Deepak Chahar's impressive 4-wicket haul outshone dazzling half-centuries from Andre Russell and Pat Cummins as Chennai Super Kings beat Kolkata Knight Riders by 18 runs in the IPL match on Wednesday. Put into bat, CSK posted a big total of 220 for 3, riding on to Plessis' 60-ball unbeaten 95 and Ruturaj Gaikwad's 64. Chasing a stiff target, KKR found themselves in deep trouble as they slumped to 31 for 5 inside 5 overs after a top order collapse, with Chahar wrecking havoc with figures of 4 for 29 from his 4 overs. Russell 54 and Cummins not out 66 raised hopes of an improbable win for KKR, but in the end they were all out for 202 in 19.1 overs. The win took CSK to the top of the table with 6 points from 4 matches, while KKR slipped to 6th. And now let's look at our next segment, which is let's look at today's weather forecast. At most places over Himachal Pradesh, at many places over Uttarakhand and South Interior Karnataka, at a few places over Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh, Gilgit-Baltistan and Muzaffarabad, and at isolated places over East Rajasthan, Rayalaseema, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry and Karaikal and Andaman and Nicobar Islands, rain and thunder showers will be observed. And also to mark Earth Day, Google has created a video doodle that highlights how we can all have a hand in helping create a brighter future for the planet. The doodle points out how we can plant a sapling at a time and save the planet. Before we end the breakfast show, we will leave you with these visuals. And just a reminder, before you step out of your house, remember to wear face mask, and also if you are eligible for the vaccination, go and get yourself inoculated and follow our Mask Up India campaign. Namaskar.
No.